Welcome into Tailgate Talk SEC. I am your host, Will Thomas, and let's get into these Week 2 matchups in the SEC. Week 1 was incredible. We got a bunch of top 10 matchups featuring SEC teams. Didn't win all of them, but, college football is all the way back. College football is all the way back, and that is all, it's all that I need. I don't know about you guys, but really for me, it is all that I need. So Week 2, we've got a few more games that no one really cares about. We got a few more games with 3 touchdown spreads or more, but there are, I believe it's 5. We got 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 6 games with tighter spreads that I'm also going to talk about. But let me just begin this episode by just running through the 3 touchdown or more spreads, starting off with San Jose State at Texas. What I'm looking for here for Texas, just have a more open and aggressive playbook. I want Arch people to throw the ball downfield a little bit more, because in that game plan against Ohio State, it was a lot by the line of scrimmage. It was not really open for him, so hopefully we get some more downfield passing from Arch that looks good, and hopefully their defense plays just as good and absolutely smothers the SJSU offense. Utah State at Texas A&M. Hopefully the Aggies get a little more separation than they had against UTSA last week. That game was close into the second half. I want to see a little more from their running backs. I want to see Marcel Reed stay strong in their receivers. Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion keep making elite plays and being the most dynamic players on the field. And similar to Texas's defense, I want A&M to absolutely smother this lesser competition, because UTSA, I think they scored 24 on them. That's too much. So hopefully the defense is able to kind of turn it around and have a better showing against Utah State. Austin Peay at Georgia. My only note here is kill them, because that should be how this goes. ETSU at Tennessee. Hopefully Aguilar has a higher completion rate against a lesser opponent than Syracuse. He was explosive against Syracuse. His numbers were fine, passing yards, touchdown-wise, but the completion rate was still down where it was at App State, which is what I was worried about going into this season. So hopefully he has a better day doing that against ETSU. I'm looking for Tennessee to continue to have a consistent running game. Really just wear down ETSU's front 7. They shouldn't be able to slow them down. And I want to see a slightly better and more consistent showing from their defense. Now, they had good sack and TFL numbers against Syracuse, but Steve Angeli and that offense did a pretty good job of moving the ball downfield. So hopefully they have a more consistent, stronger defensive showing against a team like ETSU. Arkansas State at Arkansas. I want to see more Mike Washington Jr. for Arkansas. This guy was dynamic coming out of camp. There was so much positive buzz around him, and then he had a big game in Week 1. Obviously, keep Taylor Green okay. Don't put him in spots where he can get banged up. And Arkansas State's quarterback, Jalen Raynor, he's a dynamic athlete. So Arkansas's defense, hopefully, I want to see them able to contain him to really prove that, one guy can't go through that defense on a lesser team. SC State at South Carolina. I want to see Carolina be more consistent offensively. Against Virginia Tech, they really stalled out for a while, had a few big plays in the second half to kind of open that game up, but I want to see better run lanes, more of a short to medium passing game. Sellers shouldn't play very much in this game. I can't imagine they need him for very long. We just got to keep him healthy. And I'm also interested to see Judge Collier's replacement. He is their corner who went down against Virginia Tech, and in his absence, Tech was able to hit some, either complete the passes or draw PIs on the side of the field where his replacement was. So I want to see if that replacement, based on how long Collier is out for, I don't know that information, but I want to see how his replacement can adapt and maybe play a better game on Saturday. Louisiana Tech at LSU. I want LSU's defense to stay fast. I want them to stay physical, and I want their offense to score 60 points. I think LSU should totally uncork it, because they looked really good against Clemson. They only scored 17. They should have had 24 because of the Barry and Brown catch. But regardless, this is the day where LSU's offense, I think, can really just walk in there and light it up. But I'm a little worried about them sleepwalking into it, because this is a sandwich spot in between that road game at Clemson, and they have Florida coming in next week. Am I worried about them losing this game? Not at all. But I'm a little concerned that maybe they'll sleepwalk into this. I think it goes one of two ways. I think LSU either drops the hammer, they're fully ready to go, or this game is like 7-3 midway through the second quarter, and you're kind of wondering what's going on before LSU pulls away. So we'll see how that goes. Ball State at Auburn. I want to see Auburn have a more dynamic passing attack and don't make Arnold run as much, because any quarterback who runs as much as Arnold did in Week 1, he's just not going to survive the whole year. He's just not getting hit that much, running that much. So against a lesser opponent with a lesser pass rush, I want to see them have more of a passing attack, keep Jackson in the pocket where he doesn't have to get hit as much. I want their pass rushers to wreak a lot more havoc. They didn't do as well as I thought they would against Baylor. I want to see them dominate Ball State, and that whole defense should really hold Ball State under 10. The biggest question mark for that is their secondary, right? Because Baylor had a lot of open passes really in the middle of the field between like 8 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. So let's see if that is improved against a lesser opponent. And then the last garbage game is ULM at Alabama. I just want to see some fire from Alabama. Like, yeah, sure, you can come out swinging. In the third and fourth quarter, there better still be some energy. Because when Nick Saban was there, you had A.J. McCarron fighting his center on a kneel down in a blowout. That's why they won championships with Nick Saban. There's been none of that fire under DeBoer. There just hasn't. And I thought it was going to be back this year. It did not look like it in week one. So I really need to see that fire come back. I need to see that passion and competitiveness and that edge, the chip on the shoulder of Alabama, come back in this game. They should dominate both the offensive and defensive lines. And can we just get Ryan Williams in the end zone? I think for when receivers are really struggling to kind of put up numbers consistently, they're being taken out of games. Just getting in the end zone once can really be that mental reset. So I think just getting him in the end zone will be big for both his confidence and for that offense's confidence as a whole. So Bama should win that game comfortably, but I'm looking for more of an attitude adjustment as opposed to really a gameplay adjustments. Here are the rest of the games that are good. We get closer spreads here, more competitive ones. Although this first one I actually think could get out of hand. It's Ole Miss at Kentucky. Ole Miss's offense has a big advantage in this game. Simmons threw for 341 and 2 touchdowns against Georgia State. Kawan Lacey, Ole Miss's running back, ran for 108 yards and 3 scores. And Harrison Wallace III, their transfer receiver coming in from Penn State, was explosive. But can they get pressure on Kentucky? They only had 1 sack against Georgia State. And Zach Calzada, Kentucky's quarterback, he could not have looked much worse. He was 10 of 23 passing for 85 yards against Toledo. Kentucky didn't play a tough team week one. They played Toledo, who I do think is going to win the MAC. But relative to who they're going to play this year, Toledo, and we're throwing for 85 yards with a sub 50% completion rate. It's really bad. But Dante Dowdle for Kentucky, he was a big plus. Carried the ball 14 times for 129 yards and a score, including a long of 79. And Kentucky, in that game against Toledo, they allowed the Rockets wide receiver 1, Junior Vander Esch III, to really go off. He had 7 catches for 88 yards and a score. So can Harrison Wallace for Ole Miss do that same thing? Or could Caden Lee for Ole Miss do that same thing? I think that Kentucky has already proven that they might be vulnerable to a alpha dog receiver 1 on opposing teams. And Ole Miss has a few guys that are objectively better than Vander Esch III is. So I think Ole Miss is going to have a great day passing the ball. This line is at Ole Miss minus 9.5. I would not go to 10.5. If this is 10 flat, I still take it. 10.5, you're kind of just playing with a really bad number. But at 9.5, I love it. Because I don't see how Kentucky really slows down Ole Miss. And Kentucky's offense I'm really worried about because Ole Miss can just key in on Dante Dowdle. And I think that Kentucky's passing attack doesn't even exist. So I got Ole Miss laying 9.5. That is one of my best bets for this upcoming week. And then the second game is one I'm really excited about. Kansas at Missouri. Missouri is laying 6.5. And the biggest story of this game for me is how does Jalen Daniels play? Because he is a total game wrecker. He has 7 touchdowns to 1 INT, thrown for 456 yards, 65 rushing yards. He makes everybody look great on that offense. His number 1 receiver is Emmanuel Henderson Jr., who has 9 catches for 154 yards and 2 scores. So really, can Missouri's front 7 contain Daniels from creating? Whether that be on design runs or its own broken play scrambles, can that front 7 contain him and not let him wreck the game off script? That really starts with Josiah Trotter at linebacker. He's transferred in from West Virginia this past year. I talked a lot about him this summer. I'm very excited about him. He needs to lead that effort. And also Damian Wilson II. He had 2 sacks in their opener against Central Arkansas. Can he keep that up and get to Jalen Daniels and make him uncomfortable? For Missouri, Bo Pribula looked really good. He was playing against nobody, but he looked really, really good last week. 23 of 28 passing for 283 and 2 touchdowns. Ahmad Hardy ran for 100 yards and a touchdown also. Kansas has a lot of linebacker injuries. That room was very good in the preseason on paper. They are really, really beat up coming into this game. I think Ahmad Hardy is going to be able to take advantage of that. I think he's going to run for a lot of yards this week. And having that weaker front 7 just makes everything easier for the entire offense. So actually, I had Kansas plus 6.5 as one of my plays really up until this the injury news came out about Kansas's linebackers, and that has made me shift all the way to taking Missouri to cover that 6.5, because if Ahmad Hardy can do what he wants, just really at will running the ball against softer linebackers, that opens up everything, because then you have to crowd the box with more bodies to make up for the lack of strong tackling. All of a sudden, Bo Prabula launches one over your head for a touchdown. So I've got Missouri laying 6.5 in this one as another one of my best plays. Moving on, we've got South Florida at Florida, and the biggest question here is, can the Gators contain Byron Brown? He played great against Boise State. He had 210 yards in the air, 43 on the ground, and 2 rushing touchdowns. There was not a whole lot of run game for USF against Boise, and Boise couldn't really tackle. So that is worth noting, because I don't think USF can really create on the ground unless it's Byron Brown in a scramble drill. Right? They had multiple explosives last week to Chaz Nimrod in the passing game and Keshawn Singleton on the fake punt. But Florida's defense looked incredible against Long Island. They were playing against Long Island, but they only allowed 87 yards, 2 first downs. They forced 2 turnovers and committed 0 penalties. That defense is legit, and they showed it in week 1. People were a little worried about Florida's play calling and how their offense still seemed stagnant and slow. Guys, I think it was just a vanilla playbook playing against Long Island in week 1. They'll show a little bit more against USF and then really let it unload at LSU in week 3. I think Jaden Ball looks incredible. Lagway was knocking the rust off, admittedly, but I mean, that makes sense with how much time he missed over the summer and in the fall due to injury, but he's coming back. He started looking better as the game went along. I was worried about a look-ahead spot here for Florida because they do go to Baton Rouge next week. But with USF beating Boise that bad, and the whole country seeing it, I think that kind of gets rid of the risk of a look-ahead spot, right? Because even if USF lost that game, it'd still be the same team they are right now walking into Gainesville. But Florida might not be paying as much attention. They might not be as focused on what USF can do to them. Now I don't think that's the case. I think Florida's going to be ready for USF. I think the number is pretty good at 18.5 for Florida. Maybe it's 17.5 now, actually. But I've got Florida winning this game handily. I'm not comfortable laying that many points just because Florida's offense, I still don't think is going to be totally opened up. But I do like Florida a lot in this game. Next is Vanderbilt at Virginia Tech. Now, I really believe in what Clark Lee is building, and this is a big chance to go make a statement. In week 1, Diego Pavia, their quarterback, threw 20 of 25 for 275 and 3 touchdowns against Charleston Southern. He really relied on Eli Stowers in general, and that's something that they can do throughout the year. Looking at Virginia Tech's game against Carolina, Nick Harbor got behind that secondary. And Junior Sherrill, a receiver for Vanderbilt, he's not Nick Harbor physically, but I think that he can do similar things vertically. So can Junior Sherrill do the same thing to Tech? They need to work on establishing Cedric Alexander, their running back, because in that Carolina game, they had to kind of earn it, but the running game eventually opened up against Virginia Tech. Vandy can do the same thing. The negative about Vanderbilt is that they don't have the same pass rush that South Carolina does. So I think Kyron Jones probably has a better completion rate than he did against South Carolina. I think it's more productive. And when given chances, Tech's wideouts looked really good. They looked pretty good against Carolina. They had explosive plays. They were drawing PIs. Last year, Virginia Tech came to Nashville and lost to Vanderbilt. But now their back is sort of against the wall. You don't want to start 0-2, and they have a second shot at an SEC team. This spread's like 1.5 right now. I think I have Virginia Tech winning a very, very close game. It could go either way. Right now, I think I'm slightly leaning Virginia Tech. Our second to last game here, Arizona State at Mississippi State. Now, Arizona State at practice this week has been prepping for Mississippi State's cowbells by having 2 people walking around with little baby cowbells. It's not the same. It's not the same because I think Starkville's going to be hopping for this one. They know this is a big game. This is their biggest home game, I think. I'm making that up, actually. It's not. But this is a big out-of-conference home game. Arizona State is favored by 6.5. That line tells me all I need to know about this being such a trap spot, because being less than a touchdown, that is inviting a lot of money from people who are just like, oh, we get Arizona State by less than a touchdown over Mississippi State. Free money. I don't know, because that line is there for a reason. But going to more to the football, Sam Levitt, ASU's quarterback, looked very dynamic in the opener. He was 25 of 39, threw for 257 and 2 scores in the air, ran 7 times for 73 yards and 2 more scores on the ground. Jordan Tyson is one of the best receivers in the country for the Sun Devils. He had 12 catches for 141 yards and 2 scores. They forced 3 sacks and 8 TFLs defensively against Northern Arizona, so that front does seem very productive. For Mississippi State, they were able to pull away from Southern Miss in the second half of their Week 1 game. I thought that game was going to be close, and I was right for about 35 minutes. But then the Bulldogs really put it into gear and pulled away from that lesser opponent. Blake Shapen looked pretty good. 26 to 34 passing, 270 in the air, and 1 touchdown. Devon Booth and Fluff Bothwell they're great complements to each other. You have the big bruiser, you have the elusive guy, and the receiving yards are very well spread out. So DBs can't just focus on one guy for the Bulldogs. Everybody's going to get 40 or 50 yards, which is a very good passing attack. Arizona State is the public side because of that 6.5 number. And this is such a trap spot, at least for the spread. I don't know if I'm ready to say that Mississippi State is able to win this game outright. I do have them covering that 6.5 as one of my best bets. I think this game is close. It would not shock me if State's able to win a close one. But what this line is telling me is that this is a total trap, and Arizona State is not going to they're not going to walk in there and dominate. They're just not. So I got Mississippi State covering 6.5. I'm going to lean slightly ASU to win outright, though. And then finally, we got the game of the week, Michigan at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is favored by 4.5 in the most updated lines, with a low total at 44.5. John Mateer looked awesome in week 1 in what I'm assuming was a limited playbook because they have Michigan coming in this weekend. He was 30 of 37 passing, threw for 392 and 3 touchdowns with a pick mixed in there. It really was pass heavy. They didn't run the ball a whole lot. They had 3 receivers going over 85 yards, and the defense played just as well as you would expect a Brent Venables unit to play in a game against Illinois State. For Michigan, Bryce Underwood looked pretty good in his debut. He was 21 of 31 passing, threw for 251, a touchdown, and a pick. Justice Haynes, however, was the story for Michigan, their running back. He ran wild on New Mexico, 16 carries for 159 yards and 3 scores. So can Oklahoma slow down the run game? Illinois State ran for 117 on them. You have to make Bryce Underwood win this game because what we saw last week, new quarterbacks who are younger making their first starts on the road, absolute nightmare. This is Underwood's second start, but he's 18, I think, isn't he? Or maybe he's even 17. First road game at an SEC school who believes they can make the playoff this year. It is going to be very tough for Underwood. So Oklahoma has to make him win the game. They cannot let Justice Haynes run wild on him. But my biggest thing for Oklahoma is that their O-line just has to look stronger. They did not get a lot of push running the ball against Illinois State, and that's why they were so pass-heavy. Against a better defense, they can't be one-dimensional because Michigan will take away that one dimension, and you could easily see Oklahoma really struggling to move the ball up and down the field. So that O-line has to be stronger. It has to get more push. I think that this is a good spot for Oklahoma overall. I got Oklahoma winning this game. I have them covering the 4.5. Yeah, I like Oklahoma a lot. College game day is there. I'm incredibly high on Oklahoma this year. I have them winning 10 games and going to the playoff, and that really begins with a win against Michigan in week 2 at home. So there we go. Those are all the SEC games for week 2 of the college football season. I have been Will Thomas, and thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC.